Look at your skin for a moment. Maybe it's very dark, maybe it's light, maybe it's somewhere in between. You probably don't think about it very much. It's just your skin. But hidden inside that skin is a story that began thousands of generations ago. A story about sunlight, migration, survival, and, most importantly, a story about all of us. Tonight, we're going to answer a simple question. How did humans become white? To understand the answer, we have to forget one idea first. The idea that black people and white people came from completely different beginnings. They didn't. We are one species, Homo sapiens. And the story of our different skin colors is really the story of one human family spreading across a changing planet. So let's go back, very far back, long before countries existed, long before borders, long before modern cities, and long before anyone used the words black or white to describe human populations. Our species evolved in Africa. Early humans lived in environments where sunlight was strong and ultraviolet radiation was intense, and our skin had an important job. One important part of that protection is a pigment called melanin. Melanin absorbs ultraviolet radiation. Higher levels of eumelanin are associated with darker pigmentation, which provides greater protection from intense ultraviolet exposure. Too much ultraviolet radiation can damage cells and DNA. It can also affect folate, a nutrient the human body needs for important biological processes. So, in environments with intense ultraviolet radiation, darker pigmentation could provide an advantage. But then, humans began to move. Generation after generation, our ancestors spread beyond Africa. Some moved through the Middle East. Some eventually reached Europe. Others moved into Asia and other parts of the world. And as some populations moved farther from the equator, the sunlight changed. The seasons changed. And in many northern environments, ultraviolet radiation, especially UVB, became weaker and more seasonal. Now, the relationship between sunlight and the human body was different because sunlight isn't only something we need protection from, we also need some of it. Our skin can use UVB radiation to help produce vitamin D. And vitamin D is important for human health, including healthy bones. So imagine two environments. In one, sunlight is extremely strong. In another, sunlight is much weaker for parts of the year. The evolutionary pressures are not exactly the same. Over thousands of generations, natural selection can change populations. And this is one important reason scientists think lighter pigmentation became advantageous in some populations living in regions with lower ultraviolet radiation. But here's what we must understand. Humans did not leave Africa, arrive in Europe, and suddenly become white. That's not how evolution works. Evolution is slow, very slow. Imagine thousands of generations. Children, then their children, then another generation. Small genetic differences appear, some disappear, some become more common. Populations mix, populations separate, and environments continue changing. Over enormous periods of time, these small differences can become noticeable. So there was no single moment when humans changed from black to white. There was a long evolutionary process. And even the phrase became white is a simplification. Human skin color is influenced by many genes. There isn't one single white skin gene. Pigmentation is polygenic. That means many genetic factors can influence it. And different populations can develop similar skin colors through different genetic changes. In fact, lighter pigmentation evolved more than once in human history. Different populations followed different evolutionary paths. That's one of the fascinating things about evolution. Sometimes different environments can lead different populations towards similar biological solutions. But humans have never been divided into two perfect groups. There isn't simply black and white. Human skin exists across an enormous range of shades. And there is tremendous variation within Africa itself. Africa is not one environment. It contains deserts, forests, mountains, grasslands, coastlines, and highlands. Different populations experience different environments and different histories. The same is true in Europe. The same is true in Asia. Humans have always been moving, and humans have always been mixing. People migrated, they met other populations, they had children. Their genes moved from one population into another. So human history isn't a collection of completely separate stories. It's one enormous, complicated family tree. And sunlight isn't the only factor scientists consider. Human evolution is rarely caused by one thing. Diet may have mattered. Culture may have mattered. Clothing may have mattered. Genetic drift may have mattered. Migration and population history mattered too. Humans were constantly changing the environments in which they lived. They changed their diets, they created clothing, they built shelters, they learned to control fire, and eventually they developed agriculture. So evolution wasn't happening on a frozen planet. It was happening to humans who were constantly changing the way they lived. That's why saying, black people became white is simply too simple. A better way to understand it is this. Our ancestors spread across different parts of the world. Different populations experienced different levels of ultraviolet radiation. Over many generations, natural selection and other evolutionary processes influenced skin pigmentation. And eventually, populations living in different environments developed different average skin tones. That's the story, and there is something beautiful about it. Because your skin color isn't a ranking. It doesn't tell us who is better. It doesn't tell us who is smarter. It doesn't tell us who is more advanced. And it certainly doesn't tell us who is more human. It tells us something about adaptation and ancestry. That's all. A person with very dark skin and a person with very light skin may look very different. But beneath that visible difference, they share an enormous amount of biology. Both have a heart. Both have lungs. Both have a brain. Both can feel fear. Both can experience happiness. Both can love. Both can suffer. Both grow old. And both belong to the same species. If you could travel backward through their family trees and keep going and going, eventually those branches would meet. That's the part we sometimes forget. We notice differences because differences are easy to see. But our shared history is hidden. You can't look at someone's skin and immediately see the ancient ancestors you both share. But that history is there. And in a strange way, our different skin colors can remind us of how connected humans are. Because the reason humans look different today is that our ancestors traveled. They left familiar environments, they entered new ones, they adapted, they survived, they had children, and their children continued the journey, generation after generation, until eventually the enormous variety of human appearance we see today emerged. So when you see a person with dark skin, you're not looking at someone from a completely different human beginning. You're looking at another branch of the same story. When you see someone with light skin, you're seeing another branch. Different branches, one tree, and that tree began in Africa. This is why the history of human skin color should bring us closer together, not push us apart. Our differences are real, but they are relatively recent compared with the enormous age of our shared human history. Evolution tells a story of movement, connection, mixing, adaptation, and change. There was never a point where evolution decided to make one population better than another. Evolution doesn't work like that. Darker pigmentation was advantageous in many environments with intense ultraviolet radiation. Lighter pigmentation became advantageous in some environments where ultraviolet radiation was weaker. Neither one is an upgrade, neither one is a downgrade. They are different adaptations shaped by different environments and histories. And the story is still continuing. Humans are still evolving. Our environments are changing, our diets are changing, our technology is changing. And people whose ancestors lived on opposite sides of the world can now meet, live together, and start families. Their children can carry pieces of several different human histories. The branches of our family tree continue to connect. So when you look at your skin tonight, remember that you're looking at only one small part of a much bigger story. Your skin carries traces of ancient environments, ancient migrations, ancient adaptations, but it does not define your worth. And the skin of another person doesn't define theirs. We are not separate species. We are not separate kinds of humans. We are one species with an incredible range of appearances, one family with millions of individual stories, and one journey that began in Africa and eventually spread across the planet. So how did humans become white? The answer is not that one kind of human became another. The answer is that humans spread into different environments, and different populations gradually adapted to those environments over thousands of generations. Sunlight played an important role. Melanin played an important role. Vitamin D played an important role. But so did genetics, migration, diet, culture, and chance. And the result was the incredible diversity of human skin we see today. Different shades, different histories, different journeys, but one human story. So as you close your eyes tonight, imagine our ancient ancestors beneath the African sun. Imagine them walking across the land. Imagine some of their descendants slowly moving outward, across deserts, across grasslands, across mountains, toward colder places, toward places with different sunlight. Imagine thousands of generations passing, slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. And then imagine all of those generations eventually leading to us, people with different faces, different cultures, different languages, different shades of skin, but the same ancient beginning, the same planet beneath our feet, and the same long journey behind us. Your skin is only one small part of that story, but it is a reminder that every human body is carrying history. History written not only in books, but in genes, in adaptation, in migration, in generations. And that history belongs to all of us. The story didn't begin with black people. It didn't begin with white people. It began long before those categories existed. It began with humans, and it continues with us. Tonight, we can simply rest with that thought. One species, many journeys, many shades, one human family. And the story isn't over, because our ancestors changed their skin, they changed their bodies, they changed the way they lived, and they changed the world around them. But there is another mystery waiting. If our ancestors were once covered in much more body hair, why did humans lose most of it? Why did we become so strangely different from the other great apes? That's a story for another night. For now, rest. The journey has been going on for a very long time, and somehow, all of us are part of it. Good night.